recorded. And it's being recorded because other people asked for it. So if you don't want your face to show, of course, you can face yourself out, and then your face will not show. Suzanne, the butterfly lady, is here. Woohoo! I am so excited that so many people are here, people who I have met before, people who I'm meeting for the first time, and welcome to the very first in a series that I'll be doing of Meet the Authors of our favorite butterfly authors. Today is, well, I'm not looking at myself, so how can I know if this is...
Hold it up high.
A little higher.
This is
interview,
but I'm the speaker. So where am I? I'm not here.
All right. Hold it up a little bit higher.
I can't see myself. Okay, there. So
there you go.
Good, thank you. So we're talking about Wendy Williams' book, The Language of Butterflies. And in January, we'll be speaking with Lynn Rosenblatt, who has recently written this wonderful book and wrote one of the first butterfly books that I had, which is still in print more than 20 years later. So you can just imagine, and we'll be having an inside look at that. Also in January, we will be speaking to Kylie Baumley, the author of this wonderful book, which has a name, but it's on the other side, so I can't read it. Saving Our Most, of course I know that. But, you know, this is all very new. So I'm so excited, I don't even know where to start. I hope you can stay for a while, because at the end, you can chat amongst yourselves again. And during the interview, if there's any dull moment at all, which there won't be between my ranting and Wendy's fascinating talk, if you want to chat amongst yourselves with the text chat, you are welcome to do that, because this is supposed to be fun, whatever way you can make it fun. I'm also very excited because I bought a Zoom account, and so far I know a little bit about how to use it. But what I'm really excited about is that I get to be up close and personable with the celebrity Wendy Williams, and I get to share that with
celebrity. Come on,
the very modest Wendy Williams, who has written 2 books, 5 books,
7
books, 7 books, including the last one before this one called The Horse, which was on the New York Times bestseller list. And this is my idea of a celebrity. She's an accomplished, award-winning journalist whose stories have appeared in the most prestigious publications. Now, before I start, I want to read you a review of her book from one of these prestigious publications. And here it is. Butterflies bring pleasure and fascination to everyone. Yet we know enormously little about them, even today. What we do know has been assembled by Wendy Williams in the language of butterflies, an unabashed fan talking to unabashed fanatics with credentials. Williams is a storyteller. The language of butterflies is a pleasure to read. Now, that's from the San Francisco Review of Books. But what about a real person who's not a reviewer? Well, if you look on Amazon, you'll find dozens and dozens and dozens of 5-star reviews, including this one. Butterflies are pretty. They're also symbols of freedom, of floating on air, of beauty. But until I read The Language of Butterflies, I had no idea just how fascinating they are. This book explains, in a series of entertaining stories, how butterflies have evolved over at least the last 56 million years, how their antennae guide millions of them to specific locations in annual migration, why they are so brightly colored, how such fragile creatures survive winters at 12,000 feet and maintain their energy while flying 2,500 miles. Along the way, we meet all sorts of interesting people who have devoted their careers to studying the cabbage whites, pygmy blues, pearl crescents, Delaware skippers, and great spangled fritillaries. The names alone will make you smile. You'll love this book. So whether you have read the book or not, tell everybody about it, because you are going to learn something, and learning something is not enough. It's got to be fun. We get to go with Wendy and discover all of this stuff, Wendy, because Wendy actually did not grow up being the monarch crazies that we are. She has many, many different interests. Here's a little bit about her, and then without further ado, I will introduce her. Science journalist Wendy Williams has spent her life outdoors, either on the back of a horse, on skis, or on her own 2 feet. She has spent a great deal of time in a variety of countries in Africa, walking in the fields and forests of Europe, and exploring North American mountain chains and prairies. She lives in Cape Cod in Massachusetts with her husband and her border collie, Taff. Wendy, I present you with Wendy Williams. Tell us, Wendy, how did you manage to design your life so that you could run around the world, meet fascinating people, and get paid for it?
Hi, Carol. That's an interesting question. You know, yesterday was my 70th birthday. And so
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
I asked myself exactly that question. How did that happen? Well, you know, partly sheer determination, partly a commitment to my own goal, partly my saying, I don't have any money, but I don't care. Because for most of my career, I haven't had any money.
Thanksgiving went okay?
You know, I just knew what I wanted. Apparently, I've known that since the age of 5.
Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I was hearing something else. So, you know, I just kept to my goal. I think persistence, kind of like the butterflies that have to go to Mexico, right? So, yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's a little embarrassing, you know, because I never meant to become well known. I just wanted to write about interesting things in my life, and this is what's happened. Hi, Mike. I'm getting, you know what's really fun right now? People are signing in at the bottom of the screen, and I get to say hello to everybody there saying hello. So I think this is wonderful. This is really fun.
Oh, so are they saying hello by text chat?
I don't know what it is. It says, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I don't do computers at all. I don't like computers.
All right.
I'd rather be outside looking at butterflies.
Oh,
but someone at the bottom of the screen is saying hello, so-and-so from blah,
okay.
blah, blah.
Okay, I see it now. Hello from Peterborough, San Diego County. Isn't this fun?
Somebody from Hawaii, somebody from Canada. It is fun. It's really fun.
So Wendy, you've written about horses, about squid, about butterflies. What do all these things have in common?
You know, they actually really do have something in common. I was thinking about that also yesterday. I'm really interested in the interface of human beings with the rest of nature. And in each of my books, I try to find one special aspect of being a human being that can be explained by the animals I'm writing about. Squid, for example, my book about Kraken goes all the way back to 40 years ago when I was a science writer fellow at an important science establishment here on the Cape. And I learned that the axon, the neuron with a huge long axon in a particular kind of squid that's common here called loligo, has such a big neuron, which is a cell in the brain, that scientists could work with it 100 years ago with their hands, because the axon was as thick as a pencil lead, and so they could actually handle it. And when they could handle it, they could figure out how the squid neuron worked. And that was the same way that the human neuron works in the human brain. I thought that was such a wonderful unifying truth, that any animal with a neuron has a neuron that is pretty much, not always exactly, but pretty much the same as any other animal with a neuron, which showed you how interconnected we are. we're just sort of all this same organism, only we differentiate ourselves into different kinds of things. I guess, I guess I'm kind of a Buddhist, if you want to know the truth. A Buddhist who's fascinated by science.
Okay, then. And you were writing about, yes, the squid before that movie that has captivated so many of us about the relationship that the man is having with a squid.
Yeah.
And you have a relationship with horses. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, horses have always, I mean, I was born yearning for a horse. When I was 3 years old, I used to ride the back of my father's armchair and watch those awful cowboy movies. Remember the B cowboy movies from the 1930s? When you're 3 years old, you think they're great. And I would be riding on the plains with them, pretending. I was always really good at pretending. So I've always loved horses, and eventually I managed to get some and have my own horses. And when I was 5, I told my mother I was going to write a book about horses when I grew up. And since I was almost 70, I figured I needed to get that job done. So,
okay. Take that off the to-do list. Very, very good. And and for your butterfly book, you spent how long running around the country talking to monarch experts?
Well, my books each take 2 years to research and write, and then another year in production for these books. Once you file your manuscript with the editor at the publishing house, it takes a year to go through that, to edit it, to plan the publicity for it. So basically it was a 3-year project.
Okay, well, during that 3-year project, you ran around the country speaking to some of our favorite monarch experts. David James and your participants, I'm sure you have heard some of these names, if not all of them. Anurag Agrawal and Chip Taylor, also Dr. Lincoln Brower. Can you tell us about your meeting with Lincoln Brower?
Yes, that was really quite something. First, I never got to meet Dr. Brower in person. I talked to him over the phone, and I told him that I wanted to come down and visit him, and we agreed on a date the following spring. Yeah. When it was time for me to go down, he was too ill for me to be able to go there. So I never did get to meet him, but I was delighted to be able to dedicate the book to him because I think he was a terrific person. Everything that everybody tells me about him, he was a terrific person. And were it not for him, we wouldn't have this big monarch enthusiasm that we have that's really spread around the world now. But he's really the person who got it going with his, not just his science, which was quite good, but his dedication and also his generosity with the public at large. I like scientists who care about the public at large, interact with them, work with them, like to talk about their science with them, and don't talk down to the public, but want to have them involved in the exciting things that they're doing. And I think Dr. Brower was one of those people.
I was lucky to meet him. He was avuncular. He wore a sweater. You just felt you were talking to your uncle, and that's how friendly he was. And I had the privilege of meeting Chip Taylor as well. Can you tell us about your meeting with him?
Well, Chip is a phenomenal person. He's in his 80s, you know. He's in his 80s, and he's dedicated to nature. Obviously, he loves butterflies and monarchs, but not just butterflies and monarchs, bees. When I visited with him, I went to Oklahoma when he was doing a 3-day workshop with a group of, I think they were Cherokee Indians. I think they were Cherokees. I'd have to go back. I have a terrible memory. So I spent 3 days with him and with them, and they were all working together. We found this amazing field that the local people knew about that had never been plowed. So it was this tiny, small area of original prairie. And Chip was taking everybody through there and showing them the complexity of that prairie, a small, tiny amount, but all the different kinds of things that grew there throughout the year. And he was making the point, you never see this anymore. So if you find something like this, you have to treasure it. You have to set it aside. And that helped me understand the importance of the movement right now to rewild your front yard, which we have, by the way. We have a messy front yard and we like it.
Wonderful.
So, yes, it's great, actually. My husband likes it too because he doesn't have to mow the grass now. We can just sit on the porch and watch. You know, when you have a yard like that in front of your house, it's like better than an afternoon soap opera because everybody's out there fighting with each other. The birds, get away from here. You know, the rabbits are, everybody's chasing everybody. Also, it's very dangerous. We have a video of, I think my husband got a video of a squirrel that kept getting swooped down on by a bird of prey. So the squirrel would come out and then the bird of prey would fly in front of the camera. There's all kinds of drama going on just in this tiny little front yard. So that's the kind of thing that Chip Taylor really loves, and that's his gift to the world. That's what he'd like to leave the world with, the love of the complexity of the world out there, if only we look for it.
Yeah, he just keeps going and going and going.
Yes, yeah.
Running around the country, talking to people, and again, talking one-on-one with people, very generous with his time.
Yes, very generous. Very generous. And I think without the Lincoln Browers and the Chip Taylors and the David Jameses of the world, we would be nowhere near as well off. Because the thing about science is that it's not a job, it's a life.
Mhm.
So my husband worked for a very famous bat scientist, Don Griffin. And Don sadly had cancer, but my husband worked with him, not paid, but just supporting him, because Don was in his 80s and he had cancer, but he was still insisting on going out in the field and doing research. So my husband had just retired, and his daughters suggested that they would be happier if their father with cancer in his mid-80s would go out in the middle of the night with some other guy with him. And it was a great opportunity for my husband to go out there and be with him and support him and, you know, just kind of be a companion for him out there. But for Don, there wouldn't have been any meaning to life if he hadn't been able to go out and look at his bats in the middle of the night. He was a very famous bat researcher. He discovered that bats echolocate before World War II, when nobody knew anything about that. It was an amazing original discovery.
Okay, then, well, you just mentioned David James, and I was intrigued by a story about 5-year-old monarch tagger Amelia.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what we learned from Amelia?
Well, for those who don't know David James is my idea of the quintessential scientist. He has a day job advising vineyard owners about insect control. But when he's not doing that, he has a passion for researching monarch butterflies. He got his doctorate in Australia by researching monarch butterflies there. And he came to this country, got a family, whatever, lives in Washington State, but he still loves butterflies and he still loves monarchs. So every second that he's not doing his day job or his teaching, he's out there continuing to do research on monarch migration. David is really interested in the pathways that monarchs take to fly from his home state of Washington State to the coastline of California, where they hang out for the winter. We'd all like to hang out there for the winter, but the monarchs actually do it. So David began his own tagging program for monarch butterflies west of the Rocky Mountains. He has people in Oregon and in Washington State who tag the butterflies, meaning most people here probably know what that is, but just sticking a tiny light little tag, an identification tag on them, and seeing if other people photograph them as they end up anywhere. It's It's been a very, very successful program. And again, he doesn't get paid for it. It's all volunteer, but he loves doing it. And his wife and his kids, I met him when he was on field trips. His wife and his kids are there. I mean, it's all family thing. It's just what they do. So Amelia was a 5-year-old in Oregon who was participating in David James's project. And she and her mother, Molly, had a monarch butterfly that they tagged and released. And this particular monarch butterfly flew south to the California coastline, was photographed and reported to David on at least 4 separate occasions. First of all, the butterfly went to San Francisco to hang out. Who wouldn't want to do that for a few days? I'm on my way to the coast, but I think I'll find out what's going on in San Francisco. So a woman who had a flower garden on the top of her apartment building saw the butterfly, saw the tag on it, and took a picture of it. She wasn't and still isn't a monarch enthusiast, hard to believe after this, but she saw that it said, please inform my project, blah, blah, blah. So she took the picture and she emailed it to David. So there was, again, the first identification. Then on 3 other occasions, that particular butterfly flew to the coast and went to 3 different places on the coast, and remarkably was photographed by some other citizen scientists with a sharp eyeball. And that information was also sent to David. So we got an idea of not just the pathway that the butterfly took, but of how many times during this overwintering season, the butterfly would actually move around. So until that, it was kind of assumed that the overwintering process was almost like a semi-hibernation. Hibernation's not the right word, but just, you know, the story was that the butterfly would go to find a perfect place to roost for the winter and then just huddle there. Like, that's what I would do, you know, but they don't. They move around a lot. They don't stay in one location. They're just looking for the optimal place along the coastline. So Amelia, this 5-year-old child, and her mother helped to present this really important groundbreaking science.
Yeah, so that's the role of the citizen scientist, is that we get to help, and we get to help by tagging. And put your hand up if you've ever tagged a butterfly.
I know.
Okay, now put your hand up if one of your butterflies has ever been spotted somewhere else. So you know what a thrilling experience that is. And little Amelia had her butterfly spotted 3 times. Was it 3? Yeah.
And I think it was actually 4.
4, and that contributed to the knowledge of busting the myth that they go and stay put. Now, I want to follow up on this myth busting in a moment, but first I want to give someone else a chance to ask a question. So Bev, would you like to ask your question?
Sure, let me unmute. Wendy, when I was reading your book, I noticed that they talked a lot about the habitats and the need for the milkweed. Did any of the experts on the West Coast talk about the OE problems, oh good grief, the Ophrysistis electroscura protozoan problems? Because that seems to be a high incident in the warmer climates of both Florida and California.
Yes, actually, David James has, I want to use the word Scotch tape. I think it miuld be more high tech than that. But they actually do. Do they? Is it Scotch tape? Actually, literally Scotch tape. Yeah. They take tape. They get the scales from the wing and send them off to, where is that lab in Georgia? Is it a scientist in Georgia? I think who's studying.
Georgia does have one study.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually made a conscious decision not to write about that in the book because I already have too many things to write about, you know. And so I decided, well, I'm trying to do basic biology and look at these amazing experiences, so I'll have to skip that. But yeah, the people on the West Coast are definitely involved with that study.
Okay.
Okay, then, and Bev, before you go, you know, I need you to unmute again. Bev has said something very interesting. She's actually said OE in its long form.
Not easy to do, huh?
I think we can have
I had to think about it.
an impromptu lesson. Okay, now can you very, very slowly say the long version of OE, and then we all need to say it together, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, I think it's Ophrysistis electroscura. Is that right, Holly?
All right, just do the first word first. This is way too difficult.
Unmute.
First word.
Because I have it written phonetically in my volunteer bag. Let's see, Ophrysistis.
Oh, that sounds like a disease. Oh, it is a disease.
No, it's a protozoa. It's a parasite.
Well, okay. Ophrysistis.
Okay, and then electroscura.
No, I didn't get the first one right. Say it again.
Okay, I have to remember because I normally have to look at it.
Wait, Holly, can you say it?
Ophrysistis.
I've heard it Ophrysistis.
Ophrysistis.
I've got it in a book somewhere. I had Edith break it down for me, like in real words. What does it sound like? Ophrysistis electroscura?
All right.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to solve the issue for everyone, okay?
Oh, yay.
This is how you say it. Listen to me. O-E. There you go.
All right. So this is
Why we say OE.
this is a really good reason. I am going to have to get Edith on here.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be fun?
You can type it in and hit their pronunciation button. And Holly is right. It's a re and not. I was trying to remember it because I have it written out with long vowel sounds and all, but I don't have it in front of me.
I'm looking for it.
Okay. Wendy.
Yes,
Wendy, you're still there. Okay.
I'm still there.
Wendy, we've just busted the myth of staying in one place, and your book is loaded with new facts and factoids. What other myths that you can share with us without giving away the whole book? What other myths did you bust in this book?
Well, I think for me, one of the most interesting things was talking to the scientists who were working on the structure of the proboscis. The butterfly's nose, I guess you could say, but it's not really a nose. What is it? It's a proboscis. That's the only word we can use. And until only a few years ago, it was widely assumed that it was a straw and that the butterflies were sipping with a straw, just like we would. And it was so widely assumed that that was the case that nobody ever looked at it. Nobody ever thought, what is actually happening here? And we would still be under that misinformation were it not for a wonderful scientist who had two little daughters. I think he's Russian. I don't remember exactly, but I think he's from Russia. He's here now in South Carolina. He works here. I forget the name of his university, but he was out walking in a field in South Carolina, and his little daughters were just going gaga over all the butterflies that they saw out there. So he was following them and indulging them, and they were having a really good time. We started looking at the butterflies and wondering, when the butterfly unrolls this proboscis, what is it actually doing? Sometimes the best science comes from a really simple question like that, because he thought, how is it using it as a straw? Now, this guy is actually a materials scientist. He's not really a biologist. He certainly doesn't work with wildlife usually. His job is to invent new materials that will help improve our lives, particularly things like materials that will help in cutting edge medicine, for example. So he had, and then the whole other line here is a bunch of high school kids came to him and said, we need a science project. And it needs to be a really cool science project that nobody's ever done before, because we want to make new science and we have to get it done in 2 weeks. So this is what I love about scientists. Now, most people would have said, go away, kids, don't bother me. But he actually said, okay, let me see if I can come up with something. And he harks back to when his daughters were fascinated with the butterflies and he'd watched that proboscis, that whole thing. And he said, well, maybe these kids could help me find out what the butterflies are actually really doing. Are they really sipping like a saw, like a straw? So he just got these high school kids together. Remember, they weren't scientists, they were just high school kids. That's why I love the story. Basic, important science done by 15-year-olds. How cool is that? And they took videos and discovered that the butterflies weren't actually sipping, that they were doing something different. And that was the starting point for him and scientific colleagues, not just him, but there were 3 guys who did some really cutting edge science and found out that the proboscis is profoundly complex. It's not a plastic straw or a paper straw. That its structure, well, why would it be? I mean, it's been evolving for 130 million years. I think a few new cool ideas would have come up. And it turns out that the proboscis have all of these kinds of tiny microscopic holes, for one thing, in the proboscis. So when you see the butterfly laying the proboscis down on top of something, it's not sipping, it's really more like blotting up. It's like a paper towel. So then he said, okay, so if there's all these holes in what we thought was a straw, how is the butterfly actually getting these microscopic bits of liquid from the straw-like thing all the way up into the body? So that started them researching a whole other area in which they discovered how the proboscis moves along microscopic little droplets of material, fuel, if you will, for the butterfly, up the proboscis and into the body. And from that, they've discovered all kinds of cool ways that evolution has figured out how to move things through living materials. As in, for example, I talked to a heart doctor who said that this could be applied to research in how to keep how to help with blood flow during heart surgery. So these are stories that I just love, because science is a whimsical kind of thing. You know, it's sometimes it's very directed. Certainly figuring out an antidote to the virus, a solution to the virus problem we have now. That's a very directed situation. But a lot of times the best science comes from somebody just following their own curiosity, or from little Amelia getting excited about releasing a butterfly.
Yeah, Wendy, when they came out with the fact that it wasn't a straw, it was more like a wick, and I had a look at the Monarch with its proboscis in the liquid that I was giving it, the Gatorade, it seemed, how could they just be coming up with this now? Because, you know, occasionally the point, the tip goes into the liquid, but much more often it's the curly part and not the tip. Even when you think things have been discovered, there's still more to discover. And I'm sure that our friend Holly will, if she hasn't already, discover some new body part on the on the Monarch that she is going to capture through her
fabulous photography.
And actually, Edith has contributed as a citizen scientist to some of the things we now know today. So any one of us is capable of that. Now, I'd like you to put, if you have a question, because I want to take from the audience. Who else has a question? Does Judy have a question? Oh, Mike. Mike, go ahead. Ask your question.
I'm going to try and unmute. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. So I just, it was great hearing about the discovery of migration on the West Coast. I'm wondering if Wendy could share some of her experience talking to and learning about Fred and Nora Urquhart's work on the East Coast.
I'm not sure what I'm not exactly sure what you want me to talk about, Mike, because I didn't meet them.
Oh, I thought you did. I'm sorry.
No, oh, I know.
It's sometimes hard to tell who you've met and who you heard about otherwise. So
I
assume
think
you met
Dr.
everyone.
Urquhart died. I don't think he's alive anymore.
I see.
I did talk to, on the telephone, I did get to talk to Lincoln Brower.
Gotcha.
So, and he followed up on Dr. Urquhart's discovery. So it wasn't, Dr. Brower didn't discover the migration. It was Dr. Urquhart that did that. And then afterwards, Lincoln Brower followed up and did more of that research, and he was really instrumental in spreading the word around. So is that what you meant?
I guess so. I guess it was just, I was really inspired by the wonderful movie they made about Fred and Nora Urquhart, and
Yes.
and how that all evolved. What is it? The Flight of the Butterfly, I guess.
Yes. I think that's the one. Yes.
Truly inspirational. And you talked about citizen science, how they created a movement of citizen scientists that eventually led to that discovery. It was just phenomenal.
I think Dr. Urquhart was one of the first people who did something like that. You know, I think, you know, for him to have discovered that was amazing. And I think the techniques that he used, the strategy that he used to find the solution to his problem was also very unique. I think that was kind of original with him.
Yes, so if you have a chance, go see that movie, Flight of the Butterflies, in 3D if you can't. I've seen it 5 times, and I would see it again if it came to town. Judith, did your hand is raised? Do you have a question?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you can
Oh,
unraise
it's
your hand.
raised.
And
Okay.
There's Holly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Holly.
I dug out my notes.
7 more minutes.
Edith.
And then afterwards, we'll start the sugar cookies, okay?
Not sure who. Okay. How to pronounce Ophriocistis electroscura. I don't know if you can see this.
That was elegant.
Ophriocistis electroscura.
Electroscura. Okay, we are going to do
That's what she told me.
a Zoom with Kylie Baumley in January. And at that time, if you're here again, we're going to have another practice session on pronouncing OE. So that is going to be your homework.
Holly,
It took me a long time.
type the words in the chat bar. Do you know where the chat is?
How she broke it down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Type in how she broke it down in the chat room.
Okay. Give me a
Okay, then.
second.
Now, does anybody else have any questions? Or Wendy, do you have anything else that you would like to leave your fans with?
You know, I just lost the picture. I don't know why that is. Oh, there you are. Well, I just want to say that it's been really fun to talk with people here. You all are very active on Facebook, and that's how I know many of you. And I did manage to get some of Holly's wonderful pictures in the book. I could have done a whole book just of Holly's pictures. I find the level of knowledge that you all have about your subject to be phenomenal. And I certainly, you know, my job is to get the big picture, but you guys know the minute details down to the last little iota of information. And I know for Holly, for example, if I ask her a question, not only will I get an answer, but I will get an answer I can trust and believe in. And she really knows what she's doing. You all do. And I did not intend to write the book so much about citizen science, but when I found this incredibly dedicated and knowledgeable group of people who really care about butterflies. I guess the only word I can use is gobsmacked. I really was gobsmacked. And the responses that I've gotten for this book, certainly the publisher never expected them. You know, the publisher never expected people to be so interested in butterflies. You know, they're from New York. You have to feel sorry for them. The publisher in New York City said, butterflies? You know, about butterflies? So
No idea that there were like hundreds of thousands of monarch lunatics around.
No, they had absolutely no idea. So one thing I would like to say is I love reading the comments on Amazon about the book. So if you feel like it and you haven't done it yet, write some comments on there. I'm pretty sure most of you won't give it 1 star. And tell me what you thought, you know, let me know, because it's actually really helpful for good authors, as long as they know. Some person wrote on there boring. They wrote 1 word, 2 stars, boring. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm not boring. I'm not a boring person. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not boring. But real comments that people have really thought out are really helpful to me in finding out what does the average reader get out of this book. Because one of the tricks in writing a book like this is, how deep do you go? How, you know, I'm not writing for scientists. I'm the I feel like I'm a translator. It's my job to take science and to turn it into something that people will not only understand, but will want to read. One editor said to me years ago, books are entertainment. The people have to want to turn the page. That was probably the best comment any editor ever made to me. Books are entertainment and people have to want to turn the page. So I try to do that. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting bogged down, and sometimes I feel like I'm being too superficial. So when I read those comments on Amazon, I actually get a lot out of that. So if you have a chance to do it, please. Or
because Wendy is only 70 and she's going to write another 4 books. So
I actually have 4 books in the lineup right now. I'm starting a book about a biography of dogs. It'll be like, you like butterflies, only it'll be about dogs. You know, the interface between humans and dogs. Why do people love dogs so much? Why, you know, what is this? I will tell you that I have a wonderful border collie, and he's a very handsome guy. He knows that. He's very handsome. So when he goes out for a walk, people stop and say, what a wonderful dog. And Tav says, well, yes, that's true. You know, and they would never talk to me. They're not interested in talking to me, but they're really interested in talking to my border collie. Why is that? What do we all, of course, we all love dogs. Why? So that's what my next book is about.
Well, I think you'll sell about 10 times as many as all the rest of them combined.
Maybe.
Because people really, 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 really love their dogs.
Yes. Why do they? What is that about? That's what I'm fascinated with. But then I wanted to know, why do people love butterflies? What is it about butterflies that makes people become crazy like you guys do?
Crazy. Okay, Tim's got a question.
Okay.
Tim, are you there?
Hi, sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, I just got the book and I'm on chapter 5, and really I don't know what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting it maybe to be a fiction book. I was quite blown away that I find it very fascinating.
Great.
It's a bit about Charlotte, and I'm reading about
Wasn't that an amazing story?
Those are incredible. So I've been totally pleased with it. And
oh, great.
Yeah, it's been great.
Well, I do have to be honest. There are some people who say my books are fiction.
Oh, no. Well, I haven't read any of your other ones.
No, it's not.
I got something. I can't find the raise your hand thing.
Oh, good, Rob. It's so nice to see you, and I'm just glad that you just jumped in, even though you can't find it. Fantastic. You'll be the last.
Hi, Holly. Hi, everybody.
Hi. You'll be the last question.
Hi, Lynn.
And then we'll let Wendy go. Rob, yes, why don't you introduce yourself for people who don't know you? Rob contributed a photograph to How to Raise Monarch Butterflies, and he's just so smart. So how did you get so smart, Rob?
My mother. Definitely wasn't my father.
Of course.
So I know almost everybody in this group from Facebook. I have met almost no one in person. Some of my favorite people in the entire world are right here in front of me. It's just wonderful to be here and to see all those wonderful faces, including yours, Carol. So I wanted to say something to you, Wendy. I bought your book. I'm about a third of the way through it. I love the humor in it. I love the poetry. I love the fact that you look at everything from fresh eyes, with fresh eyes. And you said something about, we're all looking at different parts of the Monarch universe, and maybe we're focusing in on certain things more than someone else. But it is our collective knowledge put together that makes the universe of the Monarchs accessible to everyone. And my particular thing is, I'm a photographer also, but I'm doing a lot of really microscopic photography. Way deeper into that end of the Monarch universe. And we know that the other end of the Monarch universe is the strategic end, right? Where people are trying to figure out how to save the species, or how to restore prairies and all those kinds of things. But the people who are doing things on a very basic level in their own gardens, in their own homes, with their own microscope, and the people who are working on the legislative end of things, trying to save monarch habitat from Canada all the way to Mexico, all of us together make up the monarch world. And no one part of that world is any more important than any other part of it. It's when we split ourselves apart and we think our little piece of it is better than everybody else's, that's where we run into problems. And you said something that really struck me earlier. You said something about everybody, all these different people that are getting so deeply into their part, whatever they think is, whatever strikes them, as being worthy of their time and attention. And recently I listened to another webinar, and the speaker said, looking at the Monarch universe, it's basically a kaleidoscope. It's made up of an infinite number of small parts, and all those parts together make one big, beautiful colored kaleidoscope. And I'm only sharing that with you now because your book is all about color. The idea that we're all loving monarchs because of color is a fantastic idea. I love it. And thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. And thank you for writing that wonderful book.
Well, thank you. Color, I wanted to know why people love butterflies so much. And I didn't really bring it out particularly intensely in the book, but I gave a Smithsonian lecture a couple of months ago, and I really spent a lot of time talking about the structure of our brains and the fact that color is sometimes processed in our minds cognitively, but that it also has other pathways that communicate that the color, our perception of color also uses other pathways in the human brain. And some of these pathways are much faster than others. For example, when we see something red or monarchy colorish, orangish, that goes along a very specific pathway in our brain. And that's why we go monarch like that, because that's the way our brains were built. So I think color is really the foundation of life in a lot of ways. Color is how various life forms communicate to each other. So that was my conclusion. That's why we love butterflies so much.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
While I'm here, sorry. You were talking about the proboscis and the way that people thought for many, many years that it was like a straw, when it's not a straw at all, it's a siphon. And so, I think it was you or someone was talking about, oh no, Carol, we're talking about the proboscis. Sometimes it's straight down in the liquid, but other times it's the curve, and it's moving around inside the liquid like that. I have a butterfly in my bathroom right now, a monarch butterfly. It lives there. It has for the last 5 weeks. It was born with only 3 wings and it can't fly. But I tested it and it's 100% clear of OE. And so it's not a disease. It just was born genetically missing a wing. So, you know, I mean, Holly and I both are admins of pretty large Facebook groups. Holly's is much larger, but I've got 8,000 in mine. And we share this one idea that we don't really support the idea of people turning thick monarchs into pets. You know, especially if they're carrying heavy loads of OE or have some other kind of disease. This butterfly is clear of OE. It doesn't have any disease. It just was born without a wing. So
I don't have issues with that. I don't have issues with people keeping them because they can't fly. But there's too many people that would keep the sick ones.
That's what I mean.
You know, the ones that need to be euthanized.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. It's not a sick butterfly. It was unfortunately born without the ability to fly. And so she lives in my bathroom in a little cage, and I feed her 3 times a day with honey water. And I've watched that proboscis 3 times a day for the last 5 weeks. I've watched exactly how she uses it. In fact, this butterfly waits for me to come into the bathroom when she's hungry, and she turns around and looks at me and flutters her wings until I feed her. I never knew that. You know, I've always thought of butterflies as being insects, but the truth of the matter is they're all incredibly distinctive. They're unique. Each one of those butterflies has its own personality and actually can learn to relate to a human being, and I'm guessing to relate to other creatures. And we know that they're unique because look what happens when they're 5th instars and they go to, if you let them loose outside, they might go 40 feet this way, 20 feet up in the air. They might go this way, that way to go find a place, the perfect place to pupate. Why do they do that? Each one of them is totally unique. We just don't understand that uniqueness. We don't get it. But if you spend enough time with a single butterfly, you will learn something that you did not know. And one of the things you will learn is they actually can communicate with us. We think of them maybe as insects, but in fact, they are other living beings, and they're part of the kaleidoscope of everything. And
well, Rob, I am looking forward to your article on that, and perhaps your upcoming book and discussing all of these things. And yes, those of us who have had to keep pets, oh my God, it's have a personal relationship with an insect. Wow. I'm going to pause right there, and I'm going to let Wendy go because she has graciously given us all of this time. And Wendy, I want to thank you so much for being here with you. I hope that we can continue our relationship and your relationship with the rest of us. Any of you can leave, of course, at any time. The people who remain, I'm going to turn off the record, and we can just chat amongst ourselves for just as long as we want. I can keep this open because I have a limit of 100 hours on this thing. So I'll formally say goodbye to everybody who's leaving now, and everybody who stays, we can meet each other some more, and we'll see what kind of chaos breaks out when all of us try to talk to each other.
Thanks, Carol, for asking me to come and talk to everybody. And this was really, I hate computers and I don't like Zoom, but this is the most fun time that I've had since the book came out. So thank you guys for being so much fun. Rob, your insight was really wonderful. What a great insight you had there. Are you doing a book?
I am.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Please tell us.
It's called The Monarch Universe.
Oh, neat, neat.